Hello, I hope you all had a very happy Easter, but I must continue down my path after having a little respite for the holiday weekend because we are inching ever closer to the Mandalorian and Grogu, and we still have 2 seasons and another season to talk about. I should say, a season of another show to talk about. So we need to start booking it down this trail. Of course, I'm Daniel Strunk. Welcome back to QuickTime Reactions, and you have found myself on the way to Mandalorian and Grogu, where I'm going to be recapping and reviewing all 3 seasons of The Mandalorian, as well as talking about the book of Boba Fett. We have just finished season 1, but we got renewed, or the show got renewed, for another season. So let us dive into season 2, episode 1, aka chapter 9, The Marshal. This episode is written and directed by Jonfavreau. And this episode, I think, is one of the key things that you can look at in terms of looking forward to the movie, because there is a certain sequence in this that I think is very, very integral. But the synopsis, we catch up with Mando and the child as they have some intel that there may be a bounty hunter on Tatooine, more specifically a Mandalorian that is on Tatooine that may be able to help Mando get the child back to the Jedi. However, that Mando isn't necessarily a Mandalorian. But there are bigger problems. There is a crate dragon that is terrorizing the lost city of Tatooine, Mos Pelgo. And it's going to have to take Mando, the Marshal, and everyone involved, including the Tusken Raiders, to try and take this thing down. Will they be able to? We'll have to wait and see. So this whole season was very hyped up. After the very big success of season 1 and seeing like where we could potentially go with it, people were hyped for season 2. And this came out during the height of the pandemic. So everyone was home and everyone was able to watch this season. And probably over the course of me reviewing this season, I'll be able to describe probably everyone's expectations getting maybe set a little too high because many people didn't like the 3rd season, which we will get into. But I actually think the 3rd season isn't as bad as some other people think. But I think the reason why people didn't like the 3rd season is because this season raised the bar so much that the 3rd season kind of fell short of people's expectations for it. But I enjoyed it. But we'll talk about that as we go along. However, let's get back to this. Mando and the child head to a underground fighting ring where they are going to a person named Gor Koresh, who may have some intel as to where this Mando is located. And funny enough, that character, Gor Koresh, is actually played by a one John Leguizamo. And this is also, I think, another reason as to why I think people also kind of gave guff to the 3rd season, particularly with one episode in season 3, which we will get to. But here, the cameo of John Leguizamo is very simple. And if you weren't paying attention, and if you didn't look in the credits, you wouldn't know that it's him. But, of course, there's going to be a scuffle and a fight breaks out. And, of course, Mando gets out and catches up to Gor Koresh, and Koresh tells him that the Mando is on Tatooine. So they basically, or Mando, I should say, leaves him strung up on a lamp, shoots the light out, and then the dogs, or the creatures that were in the shadows, basically come out and basically eat Koresh. So then Mando and the child are back on their way to Tatooine, which we then catch up with Amy Sedaris' character, Pelimoto from Season 1. They stop off, and Mando actually lets the pit droids work on the Razor Crest, which, doesn't go well at first, but, they're going to get there. He gets the info that the Mando is located in Mos Pelgo, which is a lost city for Tatooine. She points out, Mos Eisley, Mos Espa, and then Mos Pelgo, where Mos Pelgo would most likely be. So then Mando makes his way over there, and also has a bit of a chat with the Tusken Raiders a little bit before making his way into Mos Pelgo, I should say. And then he gets to Mos Pelgo and encounters the Mandalorian, who has some interesting looking armor, and some armor that really doesn't fit him all that well. Of course, you might be able to recognize the armor as Boba Fett's armor. But then, as Mando's starting to talk with him, the guy takes the helmet off, and it's Timothy Oliphant. And this is a new character that we are also going to continue to follow, at least until Book of Boba Fett. And it is Cobb Vanth. And he is the Marshal, which the title is referring to. And I'm just going to go ahead and give you his backstory. He is, of course, the sheriff of Mos Pelgo. And after the second Death Star exploded, everyone was happy in Mos Pelgo. But then the mining company came in and basically took over the town. And Cobb Vanth fled. And wandering the desert with a same container that had all that Beskar in it from Season 1. He grabbed one of those and basically went into the desert and walked until he couldn't walk no more, until he was picked up by the Jawas. And the Jawas were going to give him anything that he wanted for what was in that container, and he picked the Mandalorian armor and went back to Mos Pelgo and drove the mining company out. And essentially, he's been wearing that armor ever since. And so it looks as though Mando and Cobb are going to have a shootout in the bar area, but that's when the crate dragon comes scampering by and eats one of the banthas that were in the village. And Cobb Vanth decides to make a deal. He'll give Mando the armor if he can deal with the crate dragon. And Mando agrees, but decides that they're going to need a little bit of help. So as they are going to try and find where the crate dragon is located, they come across a band of Tusken Raiders. Of course, Cobb Vanth and the whole town of Mos Pelgo are a little bit weary of working with the Tusken Raiders because, well, they come in and, take all their stuff and et cetera, et cetera. But Mando reasons that, both of them want this crate dragon to be gone, so they're going to have to work together. And on a bit of a scouting mission to try and figure out the crate dragon's eating and sleeping patterns, They set a bantha as kind of a peace offering, but that doesn't work, and the Tusken Raider gets eaten by the Krayt Dragon instead. I should also mention, before I continue on with the recap, like, this is the first episode that we really get to see the Tusken Raiders kind of be humanized and get a look into their culture, as it were. And we're going to get a lot more of that once we talk about Book of Boba Fett, which I think is one of the awesome aspects of that show. But this has kind of given us a little bit of a window into that, which I think is really, really cool. But after some convincing of the townsfolk, they are ready to work with the Tusken Raiders to try and rid of this Krayt Dragon. They make their way to the Krayt Dragon home, which is an abandoned Sarlacc pit. And Cobb Vanth earlier on said there's no such thing as an abandoned Sarlacc pit. And then Mando says there is if you eat the Sarlacc. So that's how you get rid of a Sarlacc in a Sarlacc pit. When, you wish Boba Fett might have had that answer when he got, chucked in there. They hear that the Krayt Dragon is sleeping because, well, he's eaten enough food, so he's going to sleep for a little bit. And so they get everything set up. They bury some explosive charges, and the plan is to get that Krayt Dragon out far enough, because the only weak spot that it has is in the stomach. So they're going to try and get him out as far as they can to those explosive charges, and then hope for the best in that. And this final little bit of the episode is the first really big indicator of Favreau really trying out stuff. Like, they probably had this movie maybe circulating as far back as here. Because the entire fight with the Krayt Dragon is shot in an expanded ratio. It goes from a widescreen, if you're watching it on a laptop like I did, it is going from a widescreen to a full screen. Like, it literally takes up the entire screen. And I imagine if you watch it on a TV, it would be the exact same. It takes up the whole screen. And I wouldn't be surprised if they shot this sequence, even though it is... Probably they shot it on a volume at certain points. But I wouldn't be surprised if they shot this with a digital IMAX camera. And I think this was Favreau testing the waters to see how much IMAX footage can I be comfortable with shooting with an IMAX camera, or at least a digital IMAX camera, I should say. So the entire Krayt Dragon fight is absolutely awesome and spectacular. They do get the Krayt Dragon over the explosive charges, set him off, doesn't work. Krayt Dragon literally emerges from the mountain and just spews stomach acid onto everyone down there. Mando and Cobb fly up to try and get the Krayt Dragon's attention, which they do. And then once again the Krayt Dragon reemerges from the ground, and Mando pulls the sacrifice play and has the detonator for another set of charges on a bantha that they were going to use as bait. I absolutely love the bantha trying to run away and no, I don't want to be eaten. And so the Krayt Dragon eats both Mando and that bantha with the explosives. You're thinking Mando's done for, but Mando flies out, sets off the charges, explodes the Krayt Dragon from inside, and the Krayt Dragon is no more. And so Mando kept up his end of the bargain. Cobb Vanth keeps his end of the bargain, hands the armor over to Mando. The Tusken Raiders, while skewering the Krayt Dragon for its flesh, for food, they also find an orb, which, if my memory serves me correctly, that doesn't at least come back in the rest of the show, I don't think. And Mando rides off on his speeder bike into the dual sunset, a happy, happy man. However, there is one man up on a ridge with all of this Tusken Raider gear. He's got oh my gosh. It's not a combi stick. That's a Predator weapon. I forget the name of the weapon. Oh my gosh. But he has one of the weapons that was actually used as a toothbrush. Oh, now I remember. He has a gaffy stick. That's it. He has a gaffy stick and a Tusken Raider rifle. And he turns around. He looks very familiar to the actor that played Jango Fett in the prequel movies. And if you know, Jango Fett was literally the base for all of the clones in the Clone Wars. And so it would make sense. And Jango also had a son named Boba Fett. So, yeah, that is 100% Boba Fett, seeing that his armor is now with another Mandalorian and is now going after. When I first saw that, and then seeing Tamara Morrison's name in the credits, I'm like, yeah, that is 100% Boba. He is now going to be going after his armor. That is so awesome. This episode was such a fun way to kick off Season 2. It was really well directed, really well written as well by Mr. Jonfavreau. Really bringing back the Iron Man vibes with Vanth blowing up the mining corpse transport, as well as just the flying scenes in the Krayt Dragon fight as well. It was a really, really fun episode, and seeing what he was able to do with this has me excited for what he's going to be doing with the movie in just a little bit of a short time. But there we go. We have started down the road on Season 2. We have a little bit of a ways to go before we finish the season, and we are going to experience a lot more highs than what we experienced in this episode. That's for sure. But until next time, guys, be safe out there, and remember, always try to find a companion to join you on your journeys, because they can take you on a different path and help you find a new way. I will catch you guys next time.